Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and this is going to be the last video we make in this car. I haven't actually shared this car a lot on the channel, but this is a BMW X5 that I've had for the past several years, kind of as a daily driver, kind of serving as multiple purposes. But you guys might remember a couple weeks ago I posted a video where I got in an accident in my 440i, and I was sharing how important it is to have a dash cam to protect you in case of those situations, because I had so many close calls within just a couple weeks in this car, in my BMW X5. And unfortunately, about a week after that video was posted, this happened. So yeah, that happened. I don't know if I spoke it into existence, but we got in an accident in this car as well. And through the process of working through the insurance, they determined that it was a total loss. The cost of repairs, even though they aren't too dramatic looking in appearance, it was enough to total out this car due to its current value and how much it would cost to do all of their repairs. So we're going to be making this video as kind of a long-term review now that I've had the car for several years, several thousand miles, and give you guys a little bit of feedback in case you're interested in buying one of these as a daily driver. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe, because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. So to start off with some background, this is a 2010 BMW X5. It is the 3.0 SI trim, so it has the 3-liter N52 engine with a 6-speed automatic transmission and all-wheel drive. Now this is the model right before the LCI, so you guys might see a similar body style as this, with really nice headlights and taillights and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's not this one. This is the year right before that happened, the last year of the pre-LCI models. And this was pretty new to BMW, because at the time they were just starting to get into the SUV market. Obviously now it's pretty much their bread and butter, making majority of their profits. But they built the X5 as kind of a middle ground between the 5 Series and 7 Series up into an SUV chassis. So this one, we'll talk about the good things first. It's got a lot of really nice options, stuff that I for sure didn't even know were available back in 2010. So it's got, you know, Bluetooth and navigation, some of the more typical things, but it's got heated seats in the front. It's got heated seats in the back. It's got cooled seats. I've even got massage seats in the driver's seat if I want to use it. It's got the rear view camera, but it's also got the surround view camera so it can see the sides of the car and stuff like that. So just a lot of really cool options that made me want to go this route. Now, I'd owned a BMW at this point, and I was trying to replace a Subaru Outback. That was my daily driver previously. So I looked at a couple other models. Again, I'm not like a BMW fanatic myself. I just really like German cars. So I cross-shopped with like an Audi Q7 and a couple other vehicles, but this one drove the best. For somebody that really hates SUVs due to how they drive and how they feel, this one felt the closest to a car for me. It weighs a lot, but it handles the weight very well, and it just feels really balanced when you're driving around. So from those two standpoints, it seemed like a great deal. And then on top of that, the car new, it was about $50,000. But of course I bought it used, and I got it for $15,000. So a very significant discount. Thank you to the previous owner for taking that depreciation hit. And, you know, from that standpoint, it just seemed like a really good value. It's also great for hauling a family around, which at the time, my son had just been born. So we were looking for something a little bit bigger than the Outback, because it was really tight with the car seats. So we wanted like an SUV. And now that my daughter is here as well, you can see we've got 2 car seats in the back. Everybody fits comfortably. Nobody has to like adjust their seats in a weird fashion to make people fit or anything like that. Getting in and out is a breeze. It's just very convenient all around. And you can fold the rear seats all the way down and load up the trunk. So if you've got parts that you want to transport, like me, sometimes I have stuff for my car, stuff for my house, and you can load it up. I think I can officially fit 30 bags of mulch in the trunk now, which I am very impressed with. So yeah, a lot of great functionality features in this car that work really well. And then the last thing we'll talk about is the drivetrain, because I did pick this drivetrain specifically. I wanted the 3-liter and not the V8 because it's a little bit better on gas. You know, obviously the V8 is going to use a lot more gas, and I'm scared of BMW V8s. A lot of them have issues, and the one in the E70 in particular typically had valve stems fail that required rebuilding the head and some really expensive maintenance costs as it got higher in mileage. And I anticipated I would keep this car for a very long time. Even at this point, it's over 120,000 miles. So I knew it was something that I wanted to keep long term and didn't want too many engine issues that could leave us stranded or something like that. So went with the inline 6. It's been great. No misfires, no breaking up, no rebuilds or anything. And the 6-speed auto is fine. It's the older ZF, so it's not like the newer 8-speed, but still perfectly fine for my purposes. Now let's go on to the bad, or as my manager and people at my work would call it, the opportunity areas, because this all does come at a cost. A lot of the depreciation with these expensive BMWs is due to the maintenance costs and people's concerns on how it'll handle high mileage. And while the drivetrain itself was bulletproof and I haven't blown up anything, there were a lot of issues with everything around the drivetrain and around the car, the electronics and stuff like that. So first, let's talk about the engine stuff. I've had a lot of cooling system issues. I actually bought the car with a coolant leak in the reservoir, so I replaced that. Pretty simple, cheap fix. But then over time, it got worse. We ended up having a leak at the water pump. That one especially made me mad because everybody tells you to replace it at 100,000 miles, and I was on a road trip. So by the time I got home, it was at 100,200 miles, and then I drove my kids to a birthday party, and the water pump went bad, and the engine started getting hot. So that was pretty frustrating. Like, you know, I could have replaced it, but I didn't think I would need to replace it exactly at 100,000 miles. That just wasn't in my plans. Then after that, we had a coolant hose fail, and this one was even more frustrating because it was on the way to my grandfather's funeral and almost left us stranded as well. But thankfully, I was close enough there where I could make it there. We went to the funeral, got all of our situations handled, went to a local dealership that had the hose in stock, brought it back to the parking lot, replaced it in the parking lot, and then drove the car back home. So lots of opportunities for this car to make a bad day worse. It did one time for sure, but thankfully after that point I was able to replace all the coolant hoses and there were no more cooling system issues. Also, I had oil system issues. We currently have an oil leak. I believe it's coming from the oil pan, but it's very expensive to access and replace the oil pan gasket because of the all-wheel drive system. So I've just been kind of topping off my oil. But even before that, I had valve cover leaks. I had the oil filter housing gasket leak, all the normal stuff that happens with some of these higher mileage, older BMW engines. And again, thankfully, everything's on top of the car, right in front of the car, so it was fairly simple to replace, and I DIY everything on my car. But for other people that would be dropping this off at the dealership, that would be a very expensive task to take care of. And then the electronics. So that's the main thing everybody tells you to worry about. And thankfully, I mean, in general, it's worked okay. A lot of the features that I care about, my heated steering wheel still works perfectly fine. My heated seats work perfectly fine. But I've had to replace the iDrive like head unit. I've had to replace my footwell module, my ignition switch, my cluster. I had to replace the trunk module. So a lot of little stuff has had to be replaced just to keep everything working up to par. I'll say there are a couple issues right now, like my rear view camera doesn't always work. It's kind of a common issue with this chassis because the wire that goes from the iDrive unit all the way back to the trunk sometimes gets a short somewhere in it and you have to replace the wire. It's expensive to replace. It's a lot of work to pull everything out to replace the whole wire. So I just live with it. Most of the times it works, but sometimes it bugs out. So stuff like that, you know, there's just like little annoyances with some of the features that don't affect drivability, but if it's really important to you, it can be expensive to keep it all up to 100%. One more thing, I do want to come back to the drivetrain, simply because, like I said, I got this deliberately, but it isn't quite meeting my expectations, or maybe after a while I got used to it and started getting annoyed by it. One big thing is the gas mileage is better than the V8, but it's not that great. And again, I know it's a big car, but it's only getting like 15 miles per gallon on average. If I'm doing like a long distance road trip, it might get up to like 17 or 18, but in general, it's just way worse than I expected it to be. Like, I get that on E85 in my 440. And then on top of that, it's just so slow. And that was the main thing everybody warned me about. And I said, I don't care. It's just a daily driver. You know, I'm not trying to race anybody in it. But it is like obnoxiously slow. It barely gets out of its own way, especially when you're already on the highway moving at speed and you want to pass somebody. There's no torque to really pull the car and make it move. So those are some of the bigger problems and annoyances, along with the 6-speed automatic is a little bit slower, a little less efficient without as many gears. So all of that adds up to not quite meeting my expectations based on the standards I've met with modern BMWs. And then the last thing, of course, is the value, because these cars continue to drop. So like I said, I bought it in 2008 for $15,000. Insurance is giving me just over $6,000 for the car. So it's really still not like that great. I'm losing a lot of money, but I've put a lot of time in the car, so I can't really complain. But yeah, these values will continue to drop. Now at this point, it's probably a lot better because you won't lose as much money, especially since they're all pretty much over 100,000 miles. So the depreciation will be a lot less. But I was even surprised that it dropped that much over the 50,000 miles that I've owned it. So yeah, I won't say I learned my lesson. You know, I'm still planning on upgrading to a new vehicle that meets some of the same expectations that got me into this car in the first place. I think some things to consider is I want some more features. I want comfort access. I want a heads-up display. I want, you know, just more modern features in a car. I still enjoy how this car drives, so that's kind of what I'm looking for, is just an extension of this vehicle into the modern era that I can continue to drive the exact same way, have the same functionality and all of that stuff, but just a little more convenience, a little better efficiency, and all those good things, which BMW thankfully has been working on the past several years. So we'll see where that gets me. Of course, when I get the new car, I will be posting it on the channel and sharing with you guys, but this is the last drive in this car. I'll be dropping it off tomorrow so insurance can pick it up and cut me a little check, and we'll all move on with our lives. So thank you, X5, for doing your job the past several years. I really do appreciate it, and there are more things to come. Trust me, the new car will be a lot more fun for the channel. So I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.